There are hundreds of quiet lakes in the North Midlands of Ireland. This is County Cavan. These are not the lush meadows of Meath or the golden vale of Munster. It is a countryside that has been shaped by the melting glaciers of the Ice Age. Small sloping fields, a hard land. And the people who live here have to be self-reliant, courageous, and not afraid of hard work. This is Ballinea, in Irish Bealanaha, the mouth of the ford, only a few miles from Cavan town. Ballinea is the home of Ned Cavan, the cooper.
I was born the 8th of October 1919 in a place called Stranuden Monaghan. Well, Andy, how's things? Nothing strange about Dumkilly?
No.
Hard old frost last night.
Oh, well, I don't think it'll be too bad.
No. That's a good old bright morning, anyhow.
I'm away now, Ned.
Good luck. Good luck, Andy. I was reared on a small farm, 16 acres around that. Good flax country, oats and potatoes.
As a young man, Ned moved to Ballinea, because from this central place he could more easily dispatch his wares north to Donegal, south to Dublin, west to Mayo and Galway. He is married and has a son and a daughter.
I was working with wood, I suppose, now since I was 14 years of age. I worked in the sawmill business in the forest. As a matter of fact, to be told I was going to the wood for a day, it was the same as going to Bundoran. I would much prefer go to the wood.
Yeah.
And I started serving my time to the cooperage business. As the saying goes, I started tub thumping. And in doing so, I learned everything about timber nearly.
In the cooperage trade, nothing is wasted. The staves that form this old whiskey cask may look like they've come to the end of their days, but to Ned's experienced eye, they represent a harvest of fine oak. And in his skilled hands, they will be recycled and transformed and given a new life. From a few old boards like these, or pieces of teak from the deck planking of an old ship sent to the breaker's yard, Ned will create many beautiful things. One of the most difficult jobs for a cooper is a dash churn.
The churn is made up of two different parts, namely the body and then the crib. That would go now as a traditional one-cow churn.
Ned first cuts the staves which will form the body. All uniform length and thickness, but the width can be as varied as he likes. Next, the staves are brought to the cooper's mare. The grain is checked and they're clamped in the vise while Ned dresses them roughly with the hollow knife. But the first rule in the cooperage trade is to see that all tools are really sharp. Ned starts to hollow out that part of the stave which will be on the inside of the churn, and trims the edge of the stave so that the churn will taper in at the top of the body. It's very important the grain should run in the same direction throughout the whole job. The cooper's mare, believed to have been invented in medieval times, is also used in making handmade chairs, in basket work, and in dressing hurleys and camogie sticks. Ned's foot operates a bar which controls the clamp that holds the stave. He finishes the rough dressing of the staves on the mare. The next implement stands waiting. This is the jointer. It's really a long plane, with one end on the ground and the other raised up on two legs, because here you don't run the plane over the timber, you run the timber over the plane. The staves are planed square and tapered. Now, with the set of staves and a tress hoop, Ned starts the next process.
You get this particular size of a hoop that you need, and you what they call raise it. And as the raising, as you can see, is a simple enough job, although it takes a bit of practice. The hoop is a tress hoop, and these are used again and again and again for building different things. I have the sets that I have, I've been using them for 35 years, and I suppose they're 60 years of age. And they are for putting it into shape and what they call forging it. When you put down that second hoop on it, you hit it against the ground, and there you have it in the one piece. And you straighten the bottom of it by hammering the staves level. You run your eye across it and you see there's dead straight. And then you proceed to put 3 more tress hoops on it.
And now it's time for the crumbing knife to start tapering the bottom or chine of the churn. The shavings that were taken off the staves at the mare and the jointer are needed now for firing or forging the churn. The idea is to make the wood supple by building up an intense heat on the inside of the churn, while at the same time applying pressure to the outside of the churn with the tress hoops. But the wood mustn't catch fire. As Ned drives the tress hoops down, the wood begins to bend and curve, the joints close, and the churn becomes rounded. Now the bottom of the churn has to be cleaned off with the topping plane, making it absolutely even so that it will sit straight. The charred wood must be completely removed from the inside of the churn, a job best done while the wood is still warm, and the crumbing knife is used once again. Now Ned uses the cooper's downshave. Because of the care taken earlier in checking which way the grain runs in each of the staves, the downshave works easily since the grain is running away from it. But there's always a bit you can't reach with the downshave, so he uses the inshave, another specialized cooper's tool. Today, the demand for dash churns is small. However, Ned still sells them in Galway, North Mayo. At one time, he sent them all over Ireland, even as far as Cavan in County Kerry. It was important, he says, to make the correct shape for the region where the churn was to be sold. In County Kerry, the churn is more barrel-shaped, with a narrow, vertical mouth, whereas churns for the northern counties, such as Donegal or Fermanagh, are taller and slimmer, and the crib, the top section, is a good deal larger. The next tool Ned uses is the crows, and with it he cuts a groove around the chine. The bottom of the churn will be wedged into this groove, making a watertight seal, so you can see what accuracy and precision is called for. hence the compass. There's an old saying in the trade, a cooper without a compass is like a banker without a pen. Now he has to make a bottom to fit that groove. Coopers have a formula involving 6 steps of the compass around the groove, plus a little extra, and from that they can calculate exactly the diameter for the bottom. Ned served his time at McPhillips in Monaghan, spending 8.5 years there, mastering skills that now appear so effortless. His great hero was a man called Jim Keenan.
He was probably one of the best craftsmen that I ever come across. Very conscientious, a great man with his hands. I think I know I learned from him, and I could have learned a lot more. Now, he was a journeyman at 13 years of age. I worked with him for many years. He was very cranky, and I probably was the only one ever could get on with him, because I used to turn a deaf ear, as they call it, around this country. I remember the first churn that I made was in 1938, and I could nearly, if I went to the calendar and went back, I could tell you the day it was, because it was the week of the Dublin show. It was in May, and it was in the middle of that week, and it sticks in my mind well. And I started that morning at it, and I got on very well with my old friend Jim Keenan, and I was keeping as nice as I could to him. You know, he wasn't helping me out. He'd give me he'd keep you on the straight and narrow anyway. But in the afternoon, our tempers became a bit frayed, and he left it to myself. And I had to work the whole evening and all the night, and it was most satisfactory after. It was a better one than the next one I made. But I remember, because we fell out, he says to me, you couldn't make a nose bag for an ass. That was a great term used for some fella that couldn't do a job in the coopering business.
Keenan, like many more of the coopers, was a journeyman. Now the tress hoop can come off safely.
The oak churns now, their life was a short one, about 15 to 20 years. But I have known teak churns to be 50 to 60 years. And as a matter of fact, the trade used to say they lasted too long. But they loved the oak in the west of Ireland. And we used to specialise in teak in the north and Donegal. But the oak was much better for giving a flavour to the butter, but then the teak was far longer lasting. It was equally good when it was well tempered. That means that it was well washed in the beginning, scalded, and used a few times, and put out on the hedge to air, as they called it.
Barney Cusack, an old friend and neighbour.
Oh, good morning, Brian.
How it, Ned?
Not so bad.
That's an awful day.
My gobs, you might swear it. It was a hard night.
Oh, it was. And the day is worse than the night.
Oh, for God's
And
sake.
there's no sign of when they'll say that.
Oh, it's a severe enough winter so far.
So we had 2 winters.
Yeah.
Would you do something with this old saw for me?
What's wrong with you?
Eh?
What is
Well,
it?
I'll tell you what happened. As the bird said, I was cooking a bit of a board the other day and it hit in there.
I want to give that a rub, Bernie, and a set. I'll do it for you in 10 minutes or so.
I'm not in much of a hurry with it anyway. You never go, what kind of a contraption is this?
That's a noggin.
In noggin?
Aye.
Good God. Many a time I had a noggin of butter, mate.
Oh, that's what the way.
And they used to have to stir about out of that too.
That's right, that's right.
God, oh God.
There was often a dozen or a dozen and a half of them in houses.
Huh?
They'd be on a row on the dresser. Nowadays, they'll put a hole in it there, and hang it on the wall,
Hang it,
and put a geranium in it.
Well, so there's not many of them about the country now.
Oh, there's not too many now, not too
No.
many. But they were used.
They were
Did you ever see? Did you ever see these? Did you ever see a pig?
Ah, my God. Well, my mother brought one of them from Ballahills when she was a bride about 19 years ago. And I think she got it a wedding present.
They were made in a Balturbet,
Aye.
but they were an essential part of the dairy ware for that day. They used to mix the cows
Milk the cows in it.
in that and put it, when they had that half full, put it
Throw
over
it
into
into
the main
a
bucket.
big bucket.
And it was called a piggy. Well, I often heard...
And there was no milking machines, that.
Oh, you might swear. There wasn't too many Frisian cows either.
Oh, no, there wasn't. No.
Now for the crib. Another visitor, Derek Graham.
Oh, the hard, Derry.
Oh, good morning,
How was the corn?
Not too bad at all. Now it's a good morning, but
Oh, it's the road slippy.
it is. It's
Oh,
the
my
same
God.
places now, surely. Did you get the tubs done for
Oh,
me
my
then?
goodness, I did, surely. As a matter of fact, I finished one this morning. I gave it a touch of teak oil, but it's fair enough now.
Oh, that's lovely. What kind of timber is in there now? And
That's Burma teak.
oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's grand.
It's brass ground, of course.
Oh, that's
So
lovely.
you have nothing to put on it except a touch of teak oil when it never gets dull.
Was there two more?
Yeah, I have 14 by 12, two 14 by 12s. What are you putting in them?
Shrubs.
Oh, I thought it was ordinary flowers, but they're fair enough.
Oh, that's
They're
grand.
bored for drainage now and ready for planting.
Ready for use.
Yeah.
Ready for use. That's lovely. That's
You
grand.
can take them out to the car now and I'll put this inside.
Yeah, that's grand.
Yeah.
Do you do any more work for inside decorations such as...
I have no...
what would that be there now?
That's an umbrella stand.
Oh,
It's,
yes.
Made of Burma teak and bound with high polished brass.
Oh, lovely.
2 foot high by 10 inches diameter on the top.
Oh, lovely indeed.
So,
That's grand. Yeah. What do I owe you for these, Ned?
Sure, you can see me at the weekend. I'll be talking to you tomorrow or the next
Well,
day.
that's all right. I'll bring out the missus to see those,
And bring her
the
out
rest
to look
of
at
those
this.
things.
And
And
maybe I'll tell her this as well.
well, hopefully.
Right.
Thanks very
Good luck.
much indeed now. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Yeah.
The top half of the churn, the crib, is completed, and the collar hoop in place. This hoop will bridge the two halves of the churn when it is assembled.
In 1846, I decided anyway to have a go at it on my own. I was 26 years of age then. So it was a bit of an adventure, you know. So material was very scarce. The times the money was scarce enough too. During the cask time in Guinness's, I used to get a lot of material there. We used to get wonderful oak out of it. Some of it Russian oak, and it was really first class. They were very good to the ordinary small man in the country. They always kept his allowance of timber that they be casting off. Even when some bigger people would be for buying it all, they would always share it out evenly. To that extent, even though I never took a bottle of stout in my life, I was always very grateful to them.
Now that the top of the body of the churn has been trimmed to a knife edge, the last tress hoop can finally come off. Everything is ready for the crib to be fitted, but first chalk is rubbed on so that the hoop iron will not slip on the wood. The collar hoop, which forms the join, has been wasted for a perfect fit. A tricky job. A couple of small nails driven through the collar hoop will anchor the join. A final topping off. Then he'll make the lid.
Well, I would have hardly get into coopering at the time, only I started very early and I got apprenticed early because at that time it was a very closed shop. Not so much in the country business as in the distilleries or the breweries. As a matter of fact, you might as well try to get into Havana as get into Guinness's. It was very difficult because it was closed, protected trade. And it still is. It's handed down more or less from father to son or from father to grandson or what have you. There was another job in the early 50s and in the 60s. I made freshwater kegs for the Commissioners of Irish Lights, 10 gallon and 5 gallon. And I made various wooden utensils that used to be used in the light ships and the lighthouses. When the light ship would go round to service these stations, it used to bring this fresh water in these kegs for the supply into the places. It used to bring oak washing tubs, deck buckets. I think they were for scrubbing, and there was a rope handling them. They were made from wood too. It's wooden staves and galvanised. They were all done with galvanised because the seawater would eat away everything else. I used to label them for every lighthouse round the coast. Mutton Island or whatever you call it, or Loop Head. Different. There wasn't one of them but I knew off by heart at one time.
It was a tradition long ago that each cooperage made its own style of handle, or pulley up. So when a cooper saw a handle on a churn lid, he could tell immediately where it was made. This little cut in the lid will be matched up with another notch on the rim of the churn, so that the lid will always be put on in the same position, which will make sure that it fits perfectly. The dash is the plunger which separates the curds from the whey, turning the milk into butter.
Generally, the dash was made by a wood turner. He had a wood turning lathe, and he specialised in making butter dishes and dashes. And they were made largely out of sycamore, as white as a hound's tooth, well finished, and they were in the one piece. And they were turned, and there were all holes right round, and a hole in the centre for the staff, going up and down. Where I served me time, they were what they call a rodded dash. The raw material came from offcuts from the makings of cart fellows. Always Irish ash.
Today, Ned has to make his own. The shaft is of ash, which will be split to accommodate a wooden wedge to fix it firmly to the dash. This churn and dash are of the North Mayo type, which is where Ned will sell it. And so, casks and wash tubs, noggins and piggins, umbrella stands and plant tubs, and a one-cow dash churn.
That was the great satisfaction when you did the churn. You really achieved something. You made a thing from start to finish. You had to use the raw material, you converted it from a plank or even a cask into something else. And you felt that you created something. You left something that was going to be there for years and years and years, you know, and there was a great satisfaction, and there still is. Anything you make, it's a very satisfying job. And there's one thing about it, if you're making something, you're always trying to improve the next one. And this is something that gets into you. You'd even sacrifice money to have the thing 100% right. Croupering will disappear, there's no doubt about it. It's like the blacksmithing too. There doesn't seem to be anyone following. I think it's beginning to dawn on people now that our future lies in things that we create, and that we'll live or die, in my humble opinion, by the things we make.